Welcome to an age of exploration, where tonight you are a navigator adrift on the 16th century Atlantic Ocean. Now go ahead and settle in. Let your head sink deeply into your pillow and allow your breathing to slow. There is nothing else you need to do right now but listen, letting the day's concerns float away on a gentle tide. Where are you tuning in from this evening? Is it late in your part of the world? Or are you stealing a quiet moment in the middle of a perfectly chaotic schedule? Whatever your time, you are welcome here. If this space brings you a little peace, a quiet follow ensures you can always find your way back to our stories. Now let the sounds around you fade completely. The gentle, rhythmic rocking you feel is the deck of a merchant vessel beneath your feet. You are the ship's navigator, and the crew trusts you completely. The air is cool, and the heavy timbers groan a familiar song, promising a successful voyage and a safe return home. The world is a scream. You cannot tell the shriek of the wind from the tearing of the ropes, the rigging that holds the sails and masts together. Your knuckles are white where you grip a thick, tarred line, the only thing keeping you on the deck of the Fortune. The wood beneath your feet is no longer solid ground, but a wild beast bucking and twisting in a way that turns your stomach to ice. A wall of gray water, impossibly tall, rises over the side of the ship. There is no time to think, only to hold your breath as the Atlantic Ocean crashes down upon you, a force so heavy and cold it feels like being buried alive. The water tries to rip you from your hold, but you cling on, your muscles burning with a desperate fire. When the wave passes, you are left gasping, spitting salt from your mouth. The chilling water has soaked through your woolen clothes and seems to leach the very warmth from your bones. Your world has shrunk to this small space. The rough texture of the rope in your hands, the slick, tilting deck, and the unending, harsh mix of sounds from the storm. All your knowledge, all your careful charts, and the steady hand you use to mark your course means nothing now. The stars you navigate by are hidden behind a ceiling of churning black clouds. Your skill is a useless memory in the face of this raw, untamable power. This is not a problem to be solved with calculations. It is a monster to be survived. A flicker of lightning splits the sky, and for a single, terrifying heartbeat, the scene is lit in stark white and shadow. You see the first mate near the helm, his face a mask of grim determination as he and two other sailors wrestle with the ship's wheel. You see another man, a young sailor you've shared meals with, lose his footing. He slides across the rain-slicked deck with a cry that is swallowed by the wind before it can even form. He disappears over the side, and then the world is plunged back into roaring darkness. The image is burned into your mind, a silent, flickering picture of how quickly a life can be erased. You feel a tremor of fear, so cold and sharp, it almost makes you lose your grip. This fear is a dangerous thing. It threatens to paralyze you, to make you give in to the storm's fury. Instead of letting it take hold, you focus on the details. You notice how the mainmast, the massive central pillar of the ship, groans with a sound you can feel in your teeth. It leans at an angle that is deeply, fundamentally wrong. Another lurch of the ship sends a stack of barrels skittering across the deck. One of them smashes against the railing, and a brilliant, impossible crimson powder bursts forth, staining the wet wood like a fresh wound. It's cochineal, a precious red dye from the New World, worth more than silver by weight. The sight is so strange, a splash of vibrant color in this world of gray and black, that for a moment you can only stare as the sea washes the fortune away. The groan of the mast intensifies, becoming a high-pitched, splintering sound. Your mind, the part of you that understands angles and pressures, knows what is coming an instant before it happens. This is the breaking point. The ship, which has felt like a living thing beneath you, is about to die. There is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You can only brace yourself, flattening your body against the deck and tightening your grip on the rope until your fingers scream in protest. The instinct to survive is a powerful current, pulling you down, urging you to become as small and unmovable as possible. It's a primal command that overrides every thought of navigation or command. Then comes the crack. It is not like thunder. It is a sharper, more final sound, like the world's largest bone being snapped in two. The mainmast splinters, and the entire ship convulses in a final, violent shudder. The deck beneath you seems to drop away, and you are airborne for a heart-stopping moment before you plunge back into the churning, freezing water. The shock of the cold is absolute, a blow that drives all the air from your lungs. For a moment, there is a strange, muffled quiet beneath the waves, a stark contrast to the chaos above. Your body fights for you, kicking desperately towards a surface you cannot see. You break through into the roaring air, gasping and flailing. Your eyes sting with salt, and you can see nothing but waves rising and falling like liquid mountains. Panic begins its cold climb up your throat. The ship is gone. There are pieces of it in the water around you, splintered planks, a shattered crate, the tangled ruin of its ropes. But the solid shape of the Fortune has vanished, swallowed whole. You are alone in the vast, furious ocean. You paddle desperately, your limbs already feeling heavy and numb, your movements sluggish and clumsy. Your training, your rank, your identity as the ship's navigator, all of it has been stripped away. You are just a man, fighting for his next breath. Your hand bumps against something solid and wide. In the gloom, you make out the curved shape of a large section of the ship's hull, floating upside down like the back of a dead whale. It's a piece of your shattered world, an island in this watery hell. With the last of your strength, you pull yourself halfway onto it, your arms shaking uncontrollably. The wood is rough, covered in splinters that dig into your palms and chest, but it is stable. It is something other than the endless, moving water. You cling to it, your face pressed against the cold, wet surface, and listen. The sounds of destruction are fading. You no longer hear the snapping of wood or the cries of men. Those noises have been absorbed by the storm, leaving only the constant roar of the wind and the percussive crash of the waves. It is the sound of an empty world, a world that has been wiped clean of everything you knew just an hour ago. You lift your head and scan the darkness, your eyes straining to find any other sign of life, any other survivor clinging to the wreckage. But you see nothing, only the heaving black water and the white foam of breaking waves. You lie there, the chilling water sloshing over your legs, your body trembling from cold and exhaustion. A strange calm begins to settle over the terror. The worst has happened. The ship is lost. The crew is lost. You are adrift, a speck of life on a piece of floating wood in the middle of a boundless, angry sea. All the complex rules of your life have been reduced to one simple, brutal law: survive. You have no charts to guide you, no instruments to measure your position. Your expertise has been rendered meaningless. The only tool you have left is the feel of the current against the wreckage and the direction of the massive swells that lift and drop you in a sickening rhythm. You instinctively try to place yourself, to find north in the chaos, but it's a useless habit. For now, direction doesn't matter. All that matters is holding on through the night, through the relentless assault of the wind and the waves. The storm has taken everything from you: your ship, your crewmates, your purpose. It has left you with nothing but your own will to live. A sense of profound isolation washes over you, colder and deeper than any wave. You are the last witness to the death of the Fortune. The weight of every lost soul, every ounce of spilled cargo, every splintered plank seems to settle upon you. You were the one who guided them here, who plotted the course that led into the heart of this storm. It wasn't your fault, your logical mind insists. No chart can predict the fury of a hurricane. But logic offers little comfort when you are surrounded by the evidence of its failure. The knowledge of your own survival becomes a heavy burden. You are alive while so many others are not. The cold seeps deeper, not just into your muscles and bones, but into the very core of your spirit. You close your eyes against the stinging spray, trying to conserve what little energy you have left. The immediate terror has passed, replaced by a vast, hollow emptiness. The weight of this splintered world and your place in it settles into your understanding. The roar of the storm has collapsed into a vast, swallowing silence, broken only by the steady slap of waves against wood. Gray light seeps across the horizon, revealing an endless expanse of churning, dark water where your ship, the Fortune, once sailed. A deep, bone-aching cold has settled into your limbs, making your fingers feel like clumsy, frozen things. You tighten your grip, the raw, splintered edges of the overturned hull digging into your palms, and reminding you that this piece of your shattered world is the only thing keeping you from the depths. Your entire body shivers uncontrollably, a tremor that seems to come from your very core. And each breath you draw feels shallow and thin in the clean, cold morning. This new reality forces a change in your thinking. All your knowledge of charts and stars, of sextants and compasses is useless here. Your world has shrunk to this single piece of floating wreckage. Nearby, the sea is littered with the ghosts of your voyage. A splintered barrel, a tangled mess of rigging, a single wooden crate bobbing just out of reach. These remnants serve as grim markers of the life you had only yesterday. You push yourself up slightly, ignoring the sharp pain in your ribs, and scan the heaving surface of the water. Your training as a navigator compels you to assess, to understand your position, even when the only landmarks are debris and the rising sun. From this slightly higher vantage, you see them, other heads bobbing in the water, small and desperate against the immense backdrop of the ocean. Their cries are hoarse and weak, thin threads of sound that the wind snatches away almost as soon as they are uttered. Two figures are closer than the others, caught in the same current that pulls at your makeshift raft. One is the ship's carpenter, a man whose face is a roadmap of wrinkles from decades at sea. His hands, gnarled but powerful, are the most valuable tools you could imagine having. You can almost feel the way those hands could reinforce this hull, could fashion a mast, could bring order to this chaos. He is clinging to a smaller plank, his movements slow and exhausted. Just a few yards from him is the cabin boy. He is young, barely a man, and his face is a pale mask of terror. Yet, as a wave crashes over him, he sputters and coughs, but his eyes remain fixed on your piece of the hull with a fierce, desperate light. In his survival, you see something beyond mere practicality. You see a spark of hope, a reason to fight that goes beyond simply drawing the next breath. His spirit, his youth, could be the flame that keeps the rest of you from succumbing to the crushing despair you feel gathering like a shroud around your own heart. The current, however, is a relentless force, and you can see it is already beginning to pull the two men in slightly different directions, separating them. A cold certainty settles in your gut. You do not have the strength to save both. Your arms burn with a deep, aching fatigue, and your legs are numb. To paddle with your bare hands toward one means letting the other drift away forever. Your navigator's mind, the part of you that has always dealt in calculations and cold, hard facts, screams for the carpenter. His skills are a measurable asset, a direct path to improving your chances. He represents a logical, practical choice in a world that has become brutally logical. To save him is to invest in the mechanics of survival, to choose the tool over the inspiration. On the other hand, a deeper, more human instinct pulls your gaze toward the boy. What good are tools if the will to use them is gone? What worth is a reinforced raft if its inhabitants have already surrendered in their souls? To save the boy is to wager on the resilience of the human spirit, to believe that hope itself is a resource as vital as fresh water or dry land. It is a choice that defies calculation, a decision made with the heart in a situation that demands the coldness of the mind. You are torn between the promise of a better vessel and the preservation of a human spark. Your muscles scream in protest as you begin to paddle, your hands cupping the icy water, your body straining against the pull of the ocean. The effort is immense, each stroke a battle against your own exhaustion and the relentless sea. This singular act of will, this choice, feels heavier than any storm you have ever weathered. You are no longer just a survivor among many. You are becoming something else, a leader whose first command is a death sentence for someone. The water churns around you as you close the distance, your focus narrowing to the single face you have chosen to save. You reach him, your raw fingers grabbing the collar of his wet tunic. With a final, desperate surge of energy, you haul him from the frigid water onto the relative safety of the hull. He collapses beside you, coughing and shivering, his gratitude plain in his exhausted eyes. For a moment, there is only the sound of his gasping breaths and the endless wash of the waves. Then, you look back to where the other man was. There is nothing, only the empty, gray water, already erasing any sign that he was ever there. The choice is made, the cost is paid, and the silence that follows is a heavy, leaden thing. The few other survivors who managed to pull themselves onto nearby wreckage have watched it all. Their eyes are on you, and in their gazes you see not judgment, but a new and terrible understanding. They see that you are the one who will make the hard decisions. The chilling spray of a wave hits your face, but the cold you feel now comes from within. It is the cold of absolute responsibility. You have held a life in your hands, and, in doing so, have let another slip away. The weight of this first command settles upon you, a burden as real and as vast as the ocean itself. You are adrift, not just on the water, but in a new world of your own making, shaped by the impossible choices you now must face. The violent chaos of the storm has been replaced by a quiet that feels just as threatening. Days blur into a slow rhythm, marked only by the shifting position of the sun across the endless blue sky. You sit propped against a splintered beam, the constant, gentle rocking of the makeshift raft now as natural as breathing. The carpenter, his face grim but his hands never still, works constantly, using salvaged nails and rope to bind the floating wreckage into a more stable platform. His presence is a comfort of quiet competence, a reminder of the practical world you once knew, though the memory of the cabin boy's lost shout still echoes in your mind during the quietest moments. The other survivors, a handful of sailors and the gruff first mate, watch you, their eyes holding a mixture of hope and fear. In this new world of splintered wood and saltwater, your knowledge of the stars makes you their king. This silent authority brings with it a heavy responsibility, which you find stowed in the center of your crude vessel. 2 items were lashed to this section of the hull and survived the storm: a single, precious cask of fresh water and a small, sodden canvas sack. Inside the sack are hardtack biscuits, the famously tough bread of sailors, now swollen and mushy with seawater. They are barely food, but they are something. It is the cask, however, that holds all of your lives. You run a hand over its damp oak surface, feeling the weight of its contents. Every creak of the wood, every slosh of the water inside, is a sound more valuable than gold. This small barrel is your kingdom's treasury, and you are its sole guardian. A persistent dryness has settled deep in your throat, a scratchy, nagging feeling that makes swallowing an effort. You see the others feeling it too. They lick their cracked lips, their gazes drifting again and again toward the cask. The glare from the water's surface is relentless, forcing you to squint until your eyes ache and you see dark spots dancing in your vision. To combat this, you've torn a strip of cloth from your shirt to tie around your forehead, a small shield that does little but provides a sliver of comfort. The world has shrunk to this: the creak of wood, the rasp in your throat, and the painful shimmer of light on the waves. These sensations are the new laws of your existence. The first mate, a man whose authority was once second only to the captain's, clears his throat. The sound is rough, like stones grinding together. "Navigator," he says, his voice low but carrying in the stillness. "The men are thirsty." His statement hangs there, a simple fact that is also a challenge. It is not a request, but a demand for you to act, to provide, to lead. All eyes are on you now, expectant and pleading. They look to you not just for direction across the empty ocean, but for deliverance from the torment in their own bodies. Your calm is the only thing holding their rising panic at bay.
A conflict churns inside you, a storm as fierce as the one that wrecked your ship. Your navigator's mind, the part of you that lives by calculation and cold logic, screams at you to be cautious. You can picture the grim arithmetic: one cask, a handful of men, and an unknown number of days. The numbers dictate a brutally strict rationing schedule starting immediately. A single cup per man per day. It is the only way to guarantee you last more than a week. This path is one of foresight, of hard but necessary discipline. It would cement your authority as a provider who thinks of the future, not just the present moment of suffering. Yet, as you look at the faces around you, another part of you rebels against this cold reality. You see the hollow look in their eyes, the sun-cracked skin, the despair that is beginning to set in. To offer them a single miserable cup of water now might feel less like salvation and more like a punishment. A more generous first ration, a full ladle each, could work wonders. It would be a gesture of compassion, a way to lift their spirits and show them that there is still hope, that their new leader is a man of mercy. It would buy you loyalty and trust, but you know it would be a loan taken at a terrible interest rate, the payment coming due in the parched days ahead. The silence stretches, becoming as vast as the ocean around you. The men watch you, waiting. They see you looking at the cask, then at their faces, and they can almost hear the debate raging within you. The first mate's gaze is steady, unreadable. He will respect a hard decision, but he might also exploit a soft one. The carpenter pauses his work, his hammer resting on a plank, his eyes conveying a simple trust that you will do what is right. You feel torn between the man you need to be to survive, a cold calculator of odds, and the man you want to be, a leader who offers comfort. The two feel impossibly far apart. Finally, your decision settles. You cannot lead men who have already given up. Hope, you realize, is a resource as vital as water itself, and their supply is dangerously low. Pushing yourself to your feet, you move toward the cask with deliberate calm. You unstop the bung, the small wooden plug, and the scent of clean, fresh water, a smell you had never truly appreciated before, rises to meet you. You take the single ladle salvaged from the wreck, dip it into the darkness, and bring it up full to the brim. The water catches the light, a perfect, clear jewel. You turn not to the first mate, but to the youngest sailor, a boy barely old enough to grow a beard, and offer him the first drink. He takes it with trembling hands, gulping it down so fast that much of it spills down his chin. A collective sigh of relief seems to run through the small group. You proceed to give every man the same generous portion, watching as the simple act of drinking transforms their faces, washing away some of the fear and replacing it with a flicker of gratitude. The first mate nods slowly, a flicker of something, perhaps respect, in his eyes. You have given them a moment of relief, a brief respite from their misery. For now, you are a compassionate commander, a bringer of life. When it is your turn, you allow yourself the same full ladle. The water is cool and clean, the most wonderful thing you have ever tasted. It soothes the fire in your throat, and for a moment you feel strong again. But as you hammer the bung back into place, sealing the now noticeably lighter cask, a cold knot forms in your stomach. The cheers of the men feel short-lived. The sun still glares off the water, and the raft still creaks its endless rhythm. This first law, an act of mercy, has been passed. The much harder laws of survival, however, are yet to come, and the price for this decision will surely be paid. This weighing of hope against the harsh numbers of survival has now become the first chapter of your command. The passage of a week has ground away the sharp edges of terror, replacing them with the dull, aching reality of survival. Time no longer feels measured by the sun's journey across the sky, but by the hollow ache in your belly and the rasping dryness in your throat. Your lips are cracked, tasting of salt and blood, while your skin is a map of raw, red chafe marks from the constant dampness and the rubbing of your clothes. The endless, gentle rocking of the raft, once a simple motion, has become a source of subtle dizziness that never truly leaves, a constant reminder of your precarious place between the deep blue below and the vast empty blue above. The world has shrunk to these wet timbers, the handful of gaunt faces around you, and the constant rhythmic creak of the wood that has become the only song you know. This slow decay is a direct result of the law you laid down. Your decision to enforce strict water rationing from the first day has preserved the dwindling supply, a fact your navigator's mind confirms with cold satisfaction. Yet the price is etched into the faces of your crew. Their eyes, sunken and shadowed, follow the water cup with a desperate intensity that unnerves you. Had you been more generous in those first days, their spirits might be higher, but your cask would now be perilously close to empty. Instead, you chose foresight over fleeting comfort,
and because of this, a simmering resentment has taken root. It is a tension you feel in the long silences, a brittle quiet that feels heavier than any storm. You see it in the way the men huddle in separate groups, their muttered conversations ceasing whenever you draw near. That brittle quiet shatters one afternoon. The first mate, a man whose broad shoulders have grown bony and sharp, suddenly lunges across the small space. He grabs the collar of a younger sailor, hauling him up with a surge of startling energy. "Thief!" the first mate snarls, his voice a ragged croak. "I saw you, an extra sip from the cup when you thought no one was watching." The accusation hangs in the still, warm air, sharp and ugly. All movement ceases. Every eye fixes on you, the man who set the ration, the man whose law has just been broken. The accused sailor, face pale with fear and exhaustion, shakes his head, unable to form words. The first mate's knuckles are white where he grips the boy's tunic, his own desperation twisting his face into a mask of fury.
A hollow feeling opens in your gut, one that has nothing to do with hunger. This is the moment your command is truly tested, not by a wave or a storm, but by the weakness of men. The first mate's gaze locks with yours, a clear challenge in his eyes. He is expecting you to act, to be the unbending captain who enforces order with an iron fist. You can see the path he wants you to take. Make an example of the boy. Prove that your laws are absolute, and use fear to control the rising tide of despair. The other men watch, their expressions a mixture of fear and grim expectation. They have lived their lives under the harsh discipline of the sea, and they understand its brutal logic. A part of you, the part trained to command on the deck of a ship, agrees with this harsh calculus. However, another part of you hesitates. You look from the first mate's rage to the young sailor's terror, and you see not just a crime, but a symptom of a deeper sickness affecting you all. Enforcing rigid discipline might secure your authority, but it would also extinguish the last embers of trust. It would turn your small, fragile community into a group of prisoners ruled by a jailer. Preserving unity feels just as vital as preserving water, for you know that once men turn on each other, the sea has already won. You could intervene, act as a mediator, and search for a truth that might not even exist. This path risks making you appear weak, indecisive, and might invite the first mate to challenge your leadership directly. The fragile social order you have built is balanced on the point of this single decision. You find yourself torn between the commander you were and the leader you must become. The logic of the sea demands a swift, hard justice. The logic of survival, however, whispers that a broken community cannot endure. You look at the accused sailor, his thin frame trembling, and then at the first mate, whose own ribs show through his tattered shirt. Their conflict is born of the same gnawing emptiness that afflicts you all. Your mind races, weighing the cost of fear against the price of disunity. You know that whatever you choose now will redefine the laws of this splintered world, setting a course from which there is no turning back. After a long, tense moment, you raise a hand, not in judgment, but to command attention. "Release him," you say, your voice steadier than you feel. You have decided to act as a judge, not an executioner. You motion for the two men to separate, creating a small space in the center of the raft that suddenly feels like a courtroom. "We will have the truth of it," you declare, your voice carrying over the gentle slap of waves against the hull. You listen first to the first mate's heated account, then to the sailor's stammering denials. There is no evidence beyond one man's word against another's. Instead of pronouncing a sentence, you turn to the rest of the crew. You speak not of theft, but of your collective plight, of the shared enemy that is the endless ocean. You remind them that your only hope lies in the trust you place in one another, a bond more precious than the last cup of water. You propose a new rule. Water will henceforth be distributed by you alone, and the cask will be secured to your own wrist at night. This solution satisfies no one completely. The first mate grunts, clearly seeing your mediation as a weakness, a failure to deliver the hard justice he craved. His respect for you has curdled into something colder, more watchful. The accused sailor, though relieved, is now marked by suspicion, and the other men shift their eyes away from him. You have avoided a brutal punishment, but you have not created peace. You have merely papered over the cracks, preserving a fragile unity at the cost of clear authority. As you settle back into your position on the raft, you feel the weight of their gazes, each man measuring you, reassessing the nature of your command. The tension has not vanished. It has simply changed its shape. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple, the mood on the raft is somber. The conflict has passed, but it has left a scar on your small society. The easy companionship of the first few days is gone, replaced by a wary distance. Every sip of water is now taken under the silent scrutiny of the others. You have preserved the group, but you may have lost the crew. In this quiet, lonely moment, you realize that command is not merely about navigating by the stars or rationing supplies. It is about navigating the treacherous currents of human hearts, a task for which no chart has ever been made. You have steered a course through your first true human storm, and in doing so, you have felt the immense, crushing weight of leadership itself. The tense quiet that had settled over your small group in the past few days begins to unravel, not from a whispered accusation, but from a change in the world itself. Your navigator's eye, a tool you thought was useless in this endless blue, catches the signs first. The long, gentle swells of the ocean are shortening, becoming choppy and confused. High, thin clouds begin to streak across the sky, moving faster than the wind you feel on your skin. You see the first mate notice it too, his gaze fixed on the darkening western horizon. The way he looks at you, a silent question in his eyes, reminds you of the dispute over the water. Your decision to mediate rather than punish preserved a fragile peace, but it left a seed of doubt in him about your willingness to be hard when necessary. He is watching you now, waiting to see if your command is as soft as your justice. This moment of observation is soon broken. A strange coolness touches your sunburned cheeks, a welcome relief that quickly becomes something more sinister.
The sky transforms from a pale blue to a bruised slate gray with alarming speed. The survivors stir, their lethargy broken by a primal awareness of danger. The rhythmic creak of the raft, the sound that has been the pulse of your existence, is drowned out by a low moan from the wind. It is not the shriek of the hurricane that took your ship, but a deeper, more menacing hum. This is a squall, a sudden, violent storm. Your knowledge identifies the threat, but it offers no comfort, only a clear and terrifying picture of what is about to happen to your fragile assembly of splintered planks and frayed rope. The first drops of rain are enormous, splattering against the dry wood with loud smacks. They are a brief, cruel blessing. You and the others turn your faces to the sky, mouths open, trying to catch the fresh water on your parched tongues. For a moment, there is relief, a brief washing away of the salt and despair. But the blessing is short-lived. The scattered drops become a sheet of cold, stinging water. It hammers down on your back and shoulders, soaking your rags and chilling you instantly. The sun has baked your skin for weeks, leaving it cracked and raw, and each drop of cold rain now feels like a tiny needle prick, an assault that drives all warmth from your body. You huddle, shivering, the brief joy of fresh water forgotten in the face of this new misery. The sea rises to meet the sky's anger. The raft, which had been your entire world, now feels like a single, insignificant leaf in a torrent. It lifts violently on the crest of a wave, hanging in the air for a stomach-churning moment before crashing down into the trough with a jarring slam that rattles your teeth. The roar of the wind and water becomes a physical force, pressing in on you, making it difficult to draw full breath. To speak is impossible. Any word is torn from your lips and thrown into the chaos. You can only shout, and even then you must be inches from someone's ear for them to hear you. The world is reduced to a churning vortex of gray water and screaming wind, and you are at its mercy. In the heart of the chaos, your mind, trained to find order, desperately searches for a solution. Two paths to survival present themselves, each one a terrible gamble. You can order everyone to the center of the raft, to huddle together in a tight mass. Clinging to one another, you might generate enough warmth to ward off the deadly cold, and your combined weight could provide a stable anchor. However, this strategy is an all-or-nothing bet. One truly massive wave breaking over the center could sweep all of you away in a single final moment. The thought makes your blood run even colder. This path offers the comfort of community at the price of shared extinction. The alternative is brutal and isolating. You could order every person to lash themselves to different points on the raft's outer edges. Using the ropes you salvaged, each survivor would become a part of the raft itself, tied down to face the storm alone. This would be a terrifying ordeal, each person exposed and battered by the waves individually. It would mean abandoning the small comfort of human contact in this final struggle. Yet, if a wave were to break over the raft, it might only take one or two, while the others, secured by their ropes, could survive. This path sacrifices the group for the chance that some individuals might endure. It is the cold logic of a navigator calculating odds, but the stakes are human lives. You feel torn between these two dreadful options.
The first mate crawls toward you, his face a mask of desperation. He shouts something over the wind, pointing to the center of the raft, his gesture clearly demanding you all huddle together. His expression is a mix of fear and challenge, a final test of your command. He believes in the strength of the group, the very unity you tried to preserve. But your instincts scream at the risk. Putting all your lives in one place feels like a fool's hope, a surrender to the storm's power. The memory of your strict water rationing surfaces. You chose logic over comfort then, and it kept you alive this long. A wave crashes over the side, drenching you both and nearly tearing the first mate from his grip. The icy shock clears your mind. A decision must be made, and it must be yours alone. Compassion or calculation, shared fate or a desperate chance for a few. You know that whatever you choose will forever define your time as a leader, not by the charts you once read, but by the lives you gambled in the heart of a storm. Your training compels you forward, beyond the fear, toward the only thing left to you, command. You shake your head at the first mate, a clear and final no. Then you point to the ropes and then to the edges of the raft, your gesture sharp and undeniable. You meet his gaze, letting him see the certainty in your eyes, a certainty you do not truly feel, but must project. You are choosing the cold, hard path of survival, the path that might save some by sacrificing the comfort of all. You will not bet everyone's life on a single wave. For a moment, he seems ready to argue, his mouth open to shout a protest. But then he sees the faces of the others, looking to you, their eyes wide with terror, waiting for an order. He hesitates, then gives a short, bitter nod. Your command rings out, not in words, but in action. You grab a length of rope and begin to tie yourself to a sturdy timber near the edge, showing them what must be done. The others, seeing your resolve, scramble to follow your lead. They work with clumsy, cold-numbed fingers, helping each other tie the knots that will hold them fast. Each person finds a place, separated by splintered wood and raging water, facing the storm alone, yet bound by your single, terrible command. The feeling of the wet, rough rope tightening around your waist is the only solid thing in a world of violent motion. The howling of the wind and the crashing of the waves now live in your memory, a constant reminder of the choice you made. The squall has passed, leaving behind a silence that feels heavier than the storm's roar. The sky above is a pale, washed-out blue, and the sea has returned to its endless rhythmic swell. Your raft, however, bears the scars of the struggle. A section of the forward edge is splintered, and the lashing you ordered everyone to use now hangs loose and frayed. The decision to secure everyone to the raft's edges saved most, but not all. There is an empty space where a sailor once sat, a silent testament to the price of survival. The loss hangs over your small group, a shared and unspoken grief that makes the world feel even larger and more empty. This loss is compounded by a more immediate crisis. During the violent tossing of the squall, the wooden plug on your single water cask was loosened. Seawater seeped in, contaminating your precious supply. The first taste was a bitter, salty betrayal that crushed what little hope the sunrise had brought. Now a profound thirst has taken hold, an agony that eclipses hunger and grief. Your tongue feels thick and heavy in your mouth, and swallowing is a painful effort. Your lips, chapped by the sun for days, have begun to crack and bleed, the sting of salt in the air a constant torment against the raw flesh. This is no longer a simple discomfort. It is a creeping weakness that slows your thoughts and makes every movement a deliberate calculation of effort.
Days blur into one another, marked only by the sun's slow journey across the sky. You spend most of your waking hours scanning the horizon, your navigator's habit now a desperate prayer. The constant glare reflecting off the water makes you squint until your eyes ache, and after a time, the vast emptiness begins to play tricks on your vision. The boundary between sea and sky shimmers and wavers, a shimmering curtain that seems to hide impossible shapes. Dark patches of cloud on the far edge of the world momentarily take the form of distant mountains, only to dissolve back into vapor. You learn to distrust your own eyes, to understand that the endless blue is a canvas for your own desperate imagination. It is the first mate who sees it first. He has been staring eastward with a fixed intensity, his face a mask of sun-cracked leather. A hoarse cry escapes his throat, a sound so full of shock it makes everyone jolt. He points a trembling finger. "Sail," he croaks, the word barely audible. You follow his gaze, your heart suddenly hammering against your ribs. There, on the shimmering line of the horizon, is a tiny smudge. It is no bigger than your thumbnail, a faint, dark vertical line against the pale blue. It could be anything. It could be nothing. It is too far to be certain of its shape or direction. But the word sail is a spark thrown into dry tinder. A wave of frantic energy washes over the survivors. Men who were slumped in a listless daze now struggle to their knees, shielding their eyes and straining to see. A low murmur of excitement begins, voices cracking with disuse and dehydration. It is a fragile, painful sound, the sound of hope returning to men who had forgotten what it felt like. This single ambiguous speck has transformed the raft from a floating coffin into a vessel with a destination. For the first time in what feels like a lifetime, the survivors are not just enduring, they are looking toward something.
Yet, as you stare at that distant mark, your training fights against the hope blooming in your chest. Your mind, a place of charts, currents, and hard-won knowledge, screams caution. You know all too well the illusions the sea can offer. It could be an unusual cloud formation on the horizon. It could be a column of distant rain, a so-called waterspout that mimics a mast. It could simply be a phantom, an image burned onto your retinas by hours of staring into the blinding light. To believe in it fully feels like a betrayal of the logic that has kept you alive this long. A cold knot of skepticism forms in your gut, a chilling counterpoint to the crew's rising excitement. The first mate turns to you, his eyes blazing with a desperate fire. "We paddle," he insists, his voice a low growl. "We paddle now. It's our only chance." He speaks for all of them. You can see it in their faces. They are looking at you, their commander, expecting an order that will validate this sudden, beautiful hope. To them, inaction is the same as a death sentence. The memory of the man lost in the squall is fresh, a stark reminder that the sea gives no second chances. Their desperate gazes tell you They would rather die paddling towards a phantom than sit and wait for a slow, certain end. A conflict tears through you, a silent storm within the suffocating calm. To give the order to paddle means betting everything on a ghost. The crew has almost no strength left. An hour of hard exertion could drain their final reserves, leaving them too weak to survive another day if the ship proves to be an illusion. The disappointment would be a final, crushing blow from which their spirits would never recover. Yet to refuse the order feels equally impossible. To impose a grim, logical calm would make you seem like a jailer, a denier of their only salvation. It would break the fragile trust they have placed in you, and might even spark a mutiny born of sheer despair. You look from the smudge on the horizon to the gaunt, hopeful faces turned towards you. Is a leader's duty to protect his crew from false hope, or to use that hope as fuel, no matter how flimsy its source? You wonder if this is how all commands are given, not with certainty, but with a prayer whispered into the void. The charts are gone, the instruments lost to the depths. All you have left is your judgment, and the lives of these men rest upon it. The weight of their trust is a physical pressure on your shoulders, heavier than any fatigue. Your decision solidifies, not as a confident command, but as a choice between two unbearable possibilities. You find yourself turning away from the distant speck and looking directly at the first mate. You give a slow, deliberate nod. A cheer, weak and raspy, rises from the men. It is the sound of their last reserves of strength being thrown into a single, desperate gamble. An order leaves your lips, and immediately the raft comes alive with a flurry of weak but determined motion. Men break off pieces of wreckage to use as makeshift paddles, their movements clumsy but filled with a renewed purpose. A new rhythm begins, replacing the gentle slap of waves against the hull. It is the sound of wood dipping into water, a scattered, uneven beat of pure willpower. The raft begins to move, slowly, painfully, inching its way across the vast blue expanse towards a smudge of hope. The sun burns your exposed skin, and your throat feels like it is closing, but you paddle with them, your own motions mirroring their own. Whether you are leading them to salvation or to their final exhaustion, you do not know. You only know that you have chosen to chase the ghost. The truth of your decision you feel deep in your soul will be revealed by the unforgiving sea. The squall has passed, leaving behind a world scoured clean and unervingly silent. The roar of the wind is gone, replaced by the gentle, almost mocking slap of water against the splintered timbers of your raft. When the storm hit, your order to huddle together in the center had been a desperate gamble, a choice to face the ocean's fury as one. It worked. Everyone survived the violent tossing, a knot of humanity clinging to a fragment of a ship. However, the victory feels hollow. The lashing that held the precious water cask snapped during the worst of the pitching, and a wave, monstrous and black, washed over it completely. A deep, chilling exhaustion has settled into your bones, a weariness far beyond simple lack of sleep. It is the weight of survival,
the quiet acknowledgement that you have endured one trial only to face the next, weaker than before. As morning advances, the sun climbs into a sky of brilliant, pitiless blue. You raise a hand to shield your eyes, but the light seems to pour around it, reflecting off the endless expanse of water with a glare that makes your vision swim. Every surface of the raft is damp, crusted with a fresh layer of salt that dries into a white, abrasive powder. You feel it on your own skin, a tight, burning sensation pulling at the corners of your eyes and lips. The others are moving slowly, their actions sluggish as they try to find a position that offers even a sliver of protection from the relentless light. There is no conversation, only the occasional groan as someone shifts their sunburnt limbs. The constant, rhythmic creaking of the raft's timbers has become the only clock marking the passage of time in this new, silent world. A profound dryness begins to take hold of you. It starts in your throat, a scratchiness that swallowing cannot soothe. Soon, your tongue feels too large for your mouth, a thick, clumsy thing that sticks to your palate. You run it over your teeth and feel the grit of salt. Looking at the others, you see the same silent agony. The carpenter, his hands raw from clinging to the wood, keeps licking lips that are already starting to crack. The first mate stares out at the water, his jaw set, but you can see the effort in the simple act of breathing. Thirst is no longer an abstract fear. It has become a physical presence among you, an invisible tormentor draining what little strength the storm left behind. It is a shared misery that isolates each of you in your own private suffering.
The moment of grim discovery comes without ceremony. The young cabin boy, his face etched with a desperate hope, crawls towards the water cask. He fumbles with the bung, the small wooden plug sealing the opening, his fingers clumsy with weakness. He manages to work it free and tilts the heavy barrel, a small amount of water sloshing into a cup he holds with a trembling hand. He brings it to his lips, his eyes closing in anticipation of relief. Then they snap open. A look of horror and disbelief crosses his face as he spits the water out, coughing and gagging. A low, collective groan ripples through the survivors as the truth settles over you. The sea has poisoned your only supply of fresh water. The hope for a careful ration for a few more days of life vanishes in that single wretched splash of salt water. The world itself seems to warp under the strain of your thirst. As you force yourself to scan the horizon, a duty your navigator's mind will not relinquish. The line where the sea meets the sky refuses to stay still. It shimmers and dances, a wavering boundary that offers no certainty. The surface of the ocean glitters with a light so intense it creates dark, swimming spots in your vision. You blink, trying to clear your head, but the distortion remains. This visual lie, this trick of the heat, makes your task impossible. Judging distance or identifying shapes becomes a fool's errand. The vast emptiness around you is no longer just empty. It is actively deceptive, a canvas of shimmering illusions designed to break a man's mind. It is the first mate who sees it first. He lets out a hoarse cry, a sound so abrupt and full of feeling that it startles everyone. He points a trembling finger towards the hazy edge of the world.
"A sail!" he croaks, his voice cracking with a mixture of disbelief and frantic joy. "By God, a sail!" Following his gesture, you see it too. A dark smudge, a tiny imperfection against the blinding blue, so faint it could be a cloud or a figment of your strained imagination. But as you stare, hope, a feeling you thought long dead, surges through you like a painful shock. Others struggle to sit up, their movements clumsy but urgent. A current of raw, desperate energy electrifies the small group, their eyes all fixed on that distant, ambiguous mark. This potential for salvation transforms the first mate. His lethargy vanishes, replaced by a fierce, commanding energy. "Paddle!" he yells, his voice raw but loud enough to carry over the gentle waves. "We have to signal them! We have to move!" He begins to tear at a loose plank, trying to fashion it into a crude oar. He glares at the rest of you, his eyes wild with the promise of rescue. "What are you waiting for? Do you want to die out here? That ship is our only chance." His certainty is a force of nature in itself, an undeniable call to action that pulls at the exhausted hopes of the other survivors. They look from the smudge on the horizon to you, their faces pleading. However, your own mind is a storm of doubt. Your training, the years spent learning the ways of the sea and the sky, screams caution. You know how the sun and heat can play tricks on the eyes. You have heard countless tales from older sailors about ghost ships and phantom islands, the cruel mirages that lure desperate men to their doom. That smudge could be a low-lying cloud. It could be a distortion in the air. It could be nothing at all. To chase it would mean expending the last reserves of the crew's energy, a price that would surely prove fatal if the hope turns out to be false. The logical part of your brain, the navigator that trusts charts and stars over feeling, rebels against the first mate's raw emotion. The weight of their stares is almost a physical force. The first mate pauses his efforts, his glare challenging you directly. He is a man of muscle and instinct. You are a man of calculations and knowledge. On the deck of the Fortune, your authority was absolute. Here in this primal world of sun and salt, his simple, powerful hope is a direct challenge to your cautious reason. You feel yourself torn between two impossible choices. To order them to paddle is to endorse a potentially fatal gamble, one that could shatter their spirits completely when the sail dissolves into mist. Yet to command them to wait, to conserve their strength, could be seen as an act of despair, a surrender that robs them of their last reason to live. This is a different kind of navigation. It is not about plotting a course on a chart, but about guiding the fragile spirits of men through a sea of despair. You study the faces around you. The carpenter's stoic resignation, the cabin boy's wide-eyed hope, the first mate's burning impatience. Your decision will not be about reaching a physical destination, but about how this small, broken company will meet its end. Do you lead them in a final, glorious effort, a charge against fate, even if it is doomed? Or do you impose a grim, logical calm, forcing them to face the stark reality of your situation and husband what little time they may have left?
The silence stretches, filled only by the creak of the raft and the sound of your own labored breathing. Finally, the conflict within you settles. One path offers a fire, bright and brief, that will either lead to salvation or consume you all in its flame. The other path is a slow, cold descent into darkness, hoarding embers of strength against a night that may never end. You look once more at the shimmering smudge on the horizon, then at the desperate faces turned towards you. A decision solidifies in your gut, a commander's choice made not with charts, but with an understanding of the human heart. You open your dry, cracked lips to speak, your voice raspy but clear, delivering the command that will seal all of your fates. Your judgment, a single order against the vast ocean, has now woven your life into the unforgiving tapestry of the sea. The hope you chased to the horizon has vanished, leaving an emptiness that mirrors the gnawing void in your belly. The memory of that distant smudge, which you and the first mate argued over, has soured into a bitter lesson. Conserving your energy was the logical choice, but watching that potential salvation fade left a chill in the group that has not lifted. Every conversation is clipped, every movement slow and deliberate, as if each man is guarding the last embers of his strength. The initial agony of hunger has long passed, replaced by a dull, constant weakness that has settled deep into your bones. It makes thinking a chore and lifting a hand a monumental effort. The decision you made back in the first days about the hardtack biscuits, whether you offered a larger portion for morale or enforced strict rationing, feels like a ghost haunting this raft. The consequences of that choice are now unavoidable, etched into the hollows of every man's cheeks. This profound weakness transforms the world around you. The rhythmic slap of water against the overturned hull, once a sound of survival, now feels like a slow, mocking countdown. You find yourself tracing the patterns in the water-stained wood with a finger, the grain rough and splintered against your skin. Your thoughts drift not to charts or stars, but to the simplest of things. The memory of a crust of bread, the taste of fresh water that doesn't burn with salt, the feeling of solid ground beneath your feet. The other survivors are lost in similar trances, their eyes vacant, staring out at the endless blue expanse that has become both their prison and their entire world. A shared, unspoken misery connects you all, a fragile thread in the vast silence of the ocean. Suddenly, a sound breaks the monotony. It is not the cry of a gull or the crash of a wave, but a soft, wet exhalation, startlingly close. You lift your head, your neck muscles protesting the effort. Beside the raft, a dark, leathery head has surfaced, its eyes ancient and black, seeming to look right through you. A great sea turtle, larger than any you have ever seen, breathes again, the sound shockingly loud in the quiet. It floats calmly, its massive, patterned shell like a mosaic of the deep, a living island of flesh and bone that has risen from the depths. For a moment, no one moves.
The sight is so unexpected, so primal, that it seems like a vision born of hunger and sun. Then the realization dawns, spreading through the survivors like a spark on dry tinder. It is not a vision, it is life, it is food, it is water held within its body. The first mate's eyes lock onto yours, a wild, desperate fire kindling in their depths. He says nothing, but his meaning is clear. This is a gift from the sea, a test of your will to survive. The dull apathy that has gripped you for days is shattered by a surge of desperate energy. Your mind, sluggish for so long, begins to race, calculating angles, assessing risks, weighing the impossible odds. The turtle represents a chance, perhaps the last one you will ever have, to pull yourselves back from the brink of a slow, wasting death.
Your gaze sweeps over your small, desperate crew. If you saved the old carpenter, your eyes meet his now. His hands, though thin and trembling, still possess the memory of shaping wood. He looks from the turtle to the raft itself, his practical mind already deconstructing your shelter, seeing it not as a whole, but as a collection of potential tools. A sturdy crosspiece could become the shaft of a spear. A nail, carefully pried loose, could be the hook. He gives a slow, deliberate nod, a silent confirmation that the task, while difficult, is not impossible. His presence offers a sliver of true, practical hope, a path from desperation to action that you can actually see. However, if the carpenter was lost to the waves and you chose instead to save the cabin boy, the situation is far more grim. You look at the boy, his youthful optimism now worn down to a fragile, almost transparent shell. You see fear in his eyes, but also a desperate willingness to help. The problem is that willingness alone cannot shape wood or forge a weapon. There are no skilled hands left on this raft. The task of creating a tool from the wreckage falls to you and the other sailors. Your efforts clumsy, your knowledge limited. The odds of success feel terrifyingly slim, turning a difficult gamble into a nearly blind leap of faith. The weight of your choice from that first dawn after the storm presses down on you now with immense force. A conflict rages within you, a silent storm in the hollow of your chest. To hunt the turtle, you must break the raft. You must sacrifice a piece of the very thing that has kept you alive, weakening your only shelter in this vast, indifferent wilderness of water. The wood is your shield against the sea, and to willingly splinter it feels like a profound betrayal of the first rule of survival. The hunt itself will demand a final explosive burst of energy from bodies that are already failing. A desperate wager of your last physical reserves on a single uncertain outcome. Failure would not just mean losing the turtle. It would mean hastening your own end, leaving you weaker and on a more fragile craft. On the other hand, to let it go feels like an admission of defeat. To watch that abundance of life swim away, to passively accept your fate while a chance for salvation floats just an arm's length away, seems like a cowardice your soul cannot bear. The image of the turtle descending back into the blue, taking with it your last hope, is a vision of absolute despair. It is a choice between a slow, certain death and a fast, possible one. preservation versus salvation, logic versus instinct. The men are watching you, their sunken eyes pleading, waiting for your command. They have entrusted their lives to you, and this decision will either save them or doom them all. You find yourself torn between the navigator who calculates risk and the primal survivor who craves life. The navigator in you screams that damaging the raft is madness, an unacceptable risk that violates every principle of seamanship. It is your only constant, your only predictable asset in a world of chaos. But the survivor, the part of you that has been starved and scoured by salt and sun, sees only the turtle. It sees the glistening meat, the life-giving fluids. It feels the clawing hunger and knows that without action, death is not a risk, but a certainty. Your training and your instincts are at war, and the battlefield is the collapsing world of this tiny floating wreck. After a long, agonizing moment, you make your choice. The internal battle ceases, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. You rise to your knees, your movement unsteady but determined, and all eyes fix upon you. You look at the turtle, then at the piece of wood you have chosen as a potential sacrifice. The rough texture of the timber under your hand feels real, solid. It is a choice of action over inaction, of a dangerous hope over a quiet despair. You will not wait for the sea to decide your fate. You will force its hand.
You turn to the crew, your voice raspy from thirst and disuse, but carrying an authority that no one dares question. "We will hunt," you declare. The words hang in the still, quiet space over the water, heavy with consequence. A flicker of something, relief, fear, perhaps both, passes across the faces of the survivors. The first mate clenches his fists, a determined glint in his eyes. Whether the carpenter is there to lend his skill or not, the decision has been made. You have committed yourselves to a violent, desperate gamble. The quiet waiting is over. Now the struggle begins. The decision galvanizes the crew. A weak but purposeful energy flows through them as they await your orders. You point to a thick, straight timber lashed to the side, a piece of the ship's railing that has served as a handhold. It is essential, but it is also the best possible material for a weapon. Prying it loose takes the combined, agonizing effort of 3 men, their groans mixing with the splintering sound of the wood as it finally breaks free. The raft shudders, a groan of its own echoing the effort. For a moment, you feel a pang of regret, as if you have wounded a living creature that has faithfully carried you. Now, the slow, painstaking work of shaping the weapon begins. If the carpenter is with you, he directs the process with quiet, efficient gestures, his knowledge a beacon in your desperate situation. He shows you how to use a sharpened piece of shell to scrape and score the wood, slowly fashioning a point. If he is not, the task is a frustrating exercise in trial and error. You and the others work clumsily, your hands raw and shaking, the wood resisting your feeble attempts. The sun crawls across the sky, and you wipe sweat from your brow, the saltiness a cruel reminder of the fresh water you hope to gain. The turtle waits, a silent, patient observer to your frantic preparations. The weight of this gamble, and the piece of your world you sacrificed for it, will become a permanent part of who you are.
Summary. This part of the journey detailed the crippling effects of starvation, directly linking it to an earlier rationing choice, and presented a high-stakes opportunity in the form of a sea turtle forcing a choice between preserving the raft's integrity or risking everything to hunt for food. End state. The decision to hunt the turtle has been made, and the crew is now in the midst of the exhausting and difficult process of sacrificing a piece of their raft to create a weapon for the hunt. The ache in your stomach has become a living thing. It is no longer a simple emptiness, but a clawing creature with a will of its own, twisting and tightening until your thoughts blur. You try to focus on the horizon, on the endless rhythm of the waves, but the creature inside demands all of your attention. Every small movement you make, from shifting your weight on the rough planks to lifting a hand to shield your eyes, is a monumental effort that leaves you feeling dizzy and weak. The generous first ration you allowed so long ago feels like a fool's kindness now, a memory of a time when you thought hope was as important as survival. Now you know they are the same thing, and you have almost none of either left. The last of the hardtack biscuits, those stony squares of flour and water, are gone, their final crumbs licked from the damp sack days ago. It is during a moment of this deep, hollow weakness that a sound breaks the monotony of creaking wood and sloshing water. It is a loud, wet gasp for air, shockingly close. Your head snaps toward the source. Not 10 paces from the raft, a dark, patterned shape has broken the surface of the brilliant blue water. It is a sea turtle, larger than any you have ever seen from the deck of a ship. Its ancient head, covered in leathery, wrinkled skin, swivels slowly, and for a moment its dark, unblinking eyes seem to lock with yours. It breathes again, a deep, sighing sound that speaks of the great depths from which it came. In that instant, the creature in your stomach roars. The sight of this animal is not a wonder of nature. It is a promise. It is meat. It is liquid. It is life. A murmur ripples through the few survivors huddled on the raft. The first mate, his face now a gaunt mask of sun-cracked skin, points with a trembling finger, his mouth opening and closing without a sound. The others just stare, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and a desperate, predatory hunger. You feel their collective gaze shift from the turtle to you. They are waiting, as always, for your command, for your plan. The navigator in you, the man of charts and calculations, sees only the immense risk. To hunt such a creature would require a weapon you do not have and an explosion of energy you cannot afford. It would mean taking a dangerous chance when your only goal has been to endure. This logical part of your mind urges you to ignore it, to let it pass like a cloud, preserving what little you have left. However, another part of you, the part that now feels the gnawing emptiness more keenly than the sun on your skin, sees something else entirely. It sees a gift from the deep, a final opportunity offered by a merciless ocean.
Turning away from this feels like accepting death. You look at the men around you, at the hollows in their cheeks and the dull, resigned look in their eyes. You remember the face of the man you couldn't save from the water after the storm, his memory a constant weight on your conscience. If you do nothing, you will all soon look like him. The internal battle is fierce but short-lived. A slow death from starvation versus a quick, desperate fight for life. There is no longer a choice to be made, only an action to be taken. You turn your gaze toward the carpenter, if he is the one you chose to pull from the water. His hands, though thin and scarred by salt sores, are still the most capable on this raft. If he is not here, the task falls to you and the others, a far more uncertain effort. You find your voice, surprised by the dry, rasping sound that emerges from your throat. "We need a spear," you say, the words feeling heavy and strange in the quiet. "And a hook." The carpenter looks from you to the turtle, then down at the raft itself, his practical mind already seeing the problem. Every timber of this makeshift vessel is precious, each lashing a critical component holding your world together. To take a piece of it would be like a man tearing a rib from his own body to fashion a weapon.
The carpenter nods slowly, a grim understanding passing between you. He points to a crossbeam near the center of the raft, a thick, sturdy piece of oak that once helped support the Fortune's main deck. It is one of the key supports holding the entire structure together. Weakening it could have disastrous consequences in the next squall. You find yourself torn. That specific beam is the strongest, the most likely to make a formidable spear that won't splinter on the turtle's tough shell. Yet, removing it is a profound gamble against the sea itself. A lesser piece of wood might fail, costing you the turtle and wasting the crew's energy. The stronger piece might save you from starvation, only to have you all swallowed by the next big wave. Your decision will determine whether you die of hunger or drowning. With a deep breath that does little to calm the frantic beating of your heart, you point to the main crossbeam. "That one," you command. "It's our only real chance." There are no protests, only a shared, desperate resolve. The carpenter begins his work, using a sharpened piece of shell to slowly, painstakingly saw and worry at the wood. The sound is grating, a rhythmic scraping that sets your teeth on edge. It is the sound of your shelter being dismantled. Each stroke of his makeshift tool feels like a countdown. The men watch in silence, their thirst and hunger momentarily forgotten, replaced by a fragile, terrifying hope. The sun climbs higher in the sky, its light glinting off the water, making you squint as you watch the slow progress. As the carpenter works, the first mate shuffles closer to you. "Some sailors say they're bad luck," he mutters, his voice low so only you can hear. "That they're old souls of drowned men. To harm one is to curse yourself." You glance at him, seeing the genuine fear behind his gruff exterior. Superstition runs deep in seamen, a way of making sense of a world ruled by winds and waves they cannot control. You think of the tales you've heard,
of ships becalmed for months after harming an albatross, of storms rising from calm seas to punish a crew. But then you feel the sharp pain in your own gut and look at the gaunt faces of your men. What curse could be worse than this slow, sun-baked starvation? "We make our own luck now," you reply, your tone leaving no room for argument. "The souls of the drowned would want us to live." The first mate looks away, unconvinced but silenced. Your authority, once based on your knowledge of stars and tides, is now based on something far more primal, your willingness to make the impossible choices. The work continues, slow and agonizing. You organize 2 other men to begin braiding strips of cloth and rope fibers into a strong line, something to hold the hook they hope to carve. Every movement is deliberate, measured to conserve strength. There is no wasted motion, no idle chatter. The focus on the task is absolute, a shared prayer made of scraping wood and twisting fibers. Finally, after what feels like an entire day has passed, the carpenter frees the beam. The raft groans in protest, shifting slightly as its weight settles in a new way. The change is unnerving, a subtle reminder of the risk you've taken. He then sets to work on the end of the long piece of oak, patiently sharpening it to a point. The wood is cool and smooth in his hands, its solid weight a contrast to the flimsy nature of your survival. The turtle is still there, swimming in lazy, unconcerned circles, its large form a dark shadow beneath the waves. It surfaces periodically to breathe, that same loud gasp echoing across the water, each sound a fresh torrent, reminding you all of what is at stake. The finished spear is a crude but formidable thing, nearly 8 feet long and heavy, with a fire-hardened tip. The hook, carved from a smaller piece of splintered wood, is attached to the braided line. The tools are ready. The moment has arrived. A deep silence falls over the raft, broken only by the gentle lap of water against the hull. Every eye is on you. This was your decision, your command. The responsibility for what comes next, for the success or failure of this desperate hunt, rests entirely on your shoulders. You look at the weapon, then at the ancient creature in the water, and then at the expectant faces of your men. You have sacrificed a piece of your world for the chance to continue living in it. You have dismantled your home to feed your family. It is a choice a captain in a warm office, a navigator with a full set of charts, could never comprehend. But out here, under the vast, empty sky, it is the only kind of logic that makes sense. You gesture for the 2 strongest men to take the spear. Their hands are unsteady, their movements clumsy from weakness, but their eyes burn with a fierce intensity. You have become the master of a fragile, broken kingdom, and its fate now hinges on this single violent act. The brief surge of strength from the sea turtle has faded, leaving behind a deeper, more hollow ache than before. That single desperate hunt cost you and the others dearly, and the meager reward was gone in a day. Now starvation is no longer a dull pain, but a sharp-edged weakness that makes every thought feel slow and heavy. The failure to secure more food weighs on the small group,
a silent accusation that lingers in the quiet between the waves. Because of this failure, despair has taken root in the weakest of your crew. You notice it first as a sound, a disturbance in the raft's grim rhythm of creaks and sloshing water. It is the low, constant mutter of the oldest sailor, a man whose weathered face was once a map of good humor. His voice is a scratchy, nonsensical thread weaving through the day. He whispers fragments of old sea shanties and speaks to ghosts from ports you've never visited. At first, it was a sad distraction, but now it has become something more dangerous. A sour, unhealthy scent clings to him, a smell that makes you turn your head and breathe through your mouth. You see him lean over the edge, cupping his hands and bringing shimmering seawater to his cracked lips. He drinks it down greedily, ignoring the hoarse warnings from the first mate. You know what this means. The salt is poisoning his mind, turning his thirst into a madness that will consume him. His suffering is a grim spectacle, a vision of the end that awaits you all if something does not change. The true danger becomes clear when he lurches suddenly, trying to stand. The makeshift raft pitches violently, threatening to spill everyone into the deep. Your own muscles tense as you grab the splintered edge, your heart hammering against your ribs. The sailor stares at you, but his eyes are vacant, seeing something else entirely. In them, you are not his navigator or his leader. You are a jailer, a demon holding him on this wooden patch of hell. He babbles about golden shores just beyond the horizon, pointing a trembling finger at the empty blue expanse. The others shrink away from him, their own weakness making them unable to restrain him effectively. Another sudden movement could easily capsize your fragile world. You feel the weight of every gaze. They are all looking at you, their faces drawn with fear and exhaustion. The first mate's eyes are hard, his expression leaving no doubt as to what he believes must be done. The carpenter, if you saved him, looks down at his hands, unwilling to meet your stare, but his posture tense with unspoken anxiety. Their silence is a heavy thing, a collective appeal for you to act, to restore order, to make the impossible choice. They have given you the burden of command, and this is its terrible price. The sailor is no longer just a dying man. He is a threat, a loose piece of cargo that could sink the entire vessel. A part of you recoils from what must be done, remembering the man who shared stories during long night watches. Compassion argues that he is a fellow soul, broken by circumstance, deserving of comfort in his final hours. To attempt to soothe him, to speak to the man lost inside the madness, feels like holding on to the last piece of the civilized world you all left behind. It is an act of humanity in a place that has none. This path, however, is a gamble on a mind already lost to the poison of the sea. His next violent fit could come without warning, and your gentle words would be useless against his desperate strength as he sends you all to the bottom. But the navigator in you, the part that has kept you alive this long, sees only the cold, hard reality of the situation. His unpredictable weight, the raft's delicate balance, The number of lives hanging on this single choice. It is a brutal calculation. To ensure the survival of the group, he must be neutralized. This means ordering him to be bound, tied down to the planks like an anchor. It would be a cruel, heartbreaking act, an admission that one man's life must be sacrificed for the potential survival of the rest. Such an order would cement your authority, not in hope or respect, but in the pure, cold logic of survival. It would change you and how the others see you forever. You find yourself torn between the man you were and the leader you must become. The babbling continues, a constant reminder of the encroaching madness. The silent, waiting eyes of your crew press in on you. The memory of the raft's violent lurch is still fresh, a tremor of fear in your gut. There is no more time for debate. The sun glints off the water, and in that harsh light, you see the path forward not as a choice between right and wrong, but between a quick end and a possible future. You choose to preserve the future. You give the quiet, firm order to the first mate, your voice sounding strange and distant to your own ears. There is no argument, only a grim nod. The first mate moves with a pained efficiency, taking a length of rope you had salvaged. The old sailor offers no real resistance, his body weakened by sickness and dehydration. As the rope is secured around his wrists and ankles, his muttering softens to a low whimper. He doesn't look at you, his gaze fixed on some imaginary point in the sky. The raft settles, the immediate danger gone. A new quiet descends, heavier and more somber than before. The rhythmic creaking of the wood sounds louder now, a lonely metronome counting out the final moments of a man's life.
The other survivors do not speak. They retreat into themselves, avoiding your eyes. The fear of the madman has been replaced by something else, a chilling awareness of the line you have just crossed. You are no longer just their guide. You are their judge and their enforcer, the one willing to make the sacrifices they could not. The air of shared misery has been broken, replaced by the stark reality of your command. The sun continues its slow journey across the sky, indifferent to the small human drama playing out on the endless water. The sick man's breathing grows shallow, a faint, rattling sound that is now the only noise he makes. The image of his vacant eyes and the rough texture of the rope against his skin becomes a permanent mark on your conscience. You carry the weight of that decision with you as the empty horizon continues to stretch out in every direction, promising nothing. And so, our journey across that vast, lonely 16th century Atlantic finds its quiet harbor. Imagine, after weeks adrift, the first glimpse of a soft, green coastline. The endless rocking of the hull finally gives way to the deep stillness of the shore. The salt-crusted timbers are left behind, and the constant whisper of the wind in the rigging fades into memory. The constellations, once a desperate map for survival, now simply wheel overhead as a silent, glittering canopy, their duty done. This is the profound rest that follows the longest of voyages, a surrender not of defeat, but of arrival. Let that same sense of finally reaching a safe haven guide you into slumber. Allow the world to grow still around you, and let go of the day's long passage. Rest well and sleep peacefully.